The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel glowed like a palace, every crystal chandelier scattering light across gowns, tuxedos, and raised champagne glasses. Brandon Hale, now a polished young CEO with a perfect smile and a Rolex that flashed under the lights, stepped onto the balcony overlooking Fifth Avenue. His wife, Sloan Carter, floated beside him in a silver gown, the kind that whispers money before she even speaks. To everyone in that room, Brandon was invincible, the golden boy of New York finance. But the universe has strange timing. Downstairs, in a small charity art corner set up for children, a little boy laughed as he dipped his brush in blue paint. His cheeks were speckled with color, and when he looked up toward the balcony, the light hit his eyes gray, sharp, unmistakable. The same eyes Brandon saw in the mirror every morning. Brandon froze. He gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. Who is that kid?" he whispered. Before Sloan could answer, a woman stepped into view, a woman with dark hair pulled into a quiet bun, wearing a simple black dress. She bent down to tie the boy's shoelace. Her profile caught the light for just a second. Ava. The name slammed into Brandon's chest like a punch. 8 years. 8 years since she vanished. 8 years since he ignored every desperate call she made that stormy night. 8 years since he shut the door on the one woman who ever loved him for more than ambition. The boy lifted his head again. Their eyes met Brandon and the child. Something ancient, something buried, tore its way to the surface. "Why?" Brandon's voice cracked as the music swelled around him, drowning out his breath. "Why does he have my eyes?" Sloan turned sharply, her smile collapsing. Because she knew. She always knew. And Ava finally looked up. Ava's face drained of color the moment she realized who was standing on the balcony above her. Ava Sinclair never looked like someone the world should fear. She was the kind of woman New York swallowed whole, quiet, hardworking, unnoticed. At 30, she carried herself with a calm strength, the kind that only comes from surviving storms no one else sees. She lived in a modest walk-up apartment overlooking a sliver of Central Park, where she worked long nights hunched over her MacBook Air, sketching landscapes for clients who barely knew her name. Most of them thought she was just another freelancer chasing invoices, but they didn't know she once rebuilt her life from ashes. 8 years earlier, Ava had arrived in the city with nothing but a duffel bag, a cracked iPhone, and a heart naive enough to believe love could save her. Back then, she worked as a cashier at a convenience store in Brooklyn, taking shifts other people refused because the pay was 50 cents higher at night. She slept in a room so tiny she could touch both walls if she stretched out her arms. And yet, she found joy, small joys, like cheap coffee, the rumble of subway trains, and the idea that she could design beautiful spaces one day. But her world tilted the moment she met Brandon Hale. He walked into her life wearing an ill-fitting suit and a tired smile, complaining about stock charts like they were monsters chasing him. She laughed at him, actually laughed, and he told her no one had ever done that before. He said she made him feel real. Back then, she believed him. Their relationship grew in stolen moments. Subway rides home, bowls of ramen after her shift, nights when he held her close as if she was the only calm thing in his chaotic world. And when she found out she was pregnant, she told herself it was fate. She imagined a tiny apartment filled with plants she designed, a crib she saved up for, and Brandon holding their baby with pride. But fate wasn't kind. Her pregnancy was rough morning sickness that lasted all day, dizzy spells, and a supervisor who threatened to fire her if she missed another shift. She hid her growing belly under oversized sweaters, terrified she'd lose the job that kept her afloat. Her father, long gone in a haze of alcohol, never answered her calls. She was alone except for a child she hadn't met yet. Still, she clung to Brandon's promises, until the night he shattered everything. When he stopped answering her calls, Ava thought something had happened. When he blocked her number, she thought it was a mistake. But when she learned much later he had been with Sloan Carter in a Ritz-Carlton suite while she lay on a hospital table fighting for her life and her unborn child, something inside her broke so deeply it never healed the same. She raised Liam alone, juggling 3 jobs, selling old textbooks, skipping meals so he could eat. Her hands grew rough from work, her shoulders stiff from carrying him through winters when she couldn't afford a stroller. But she never complained. She loved him more fiercely than she ever loved Brandon. Now, in the present, as she stood in the Plaza Hotel helping children paint under warm lights, Ava felt her life finally settling. She had stable clients. Liam's health was better. For once, the future didn't terrify her. Until she lifted her head and saw him. Brandon Hale. Older, colder, staring directly at her son. And in that moment, Ava felt her throat tighten because she knew the past she buried was no longer buried at all. And she knew Brandon would not walk away this time, no matter what it cost her. New York had always been a city of contrasts for Ava Sinclair. In the same breath, it could offer her a view of sunlit treetops in Central Park and the sharp ache of unpaid bills on her kitchen counter. Yet, somehow, she survived here. She grew roots between subway rails, coffee-stained sketches, and late-night design drafts typed on her aging MacBook Air. It wasn't the glamorous Manhattan life people imagined, but it was hers. Most mornings began with the rumble of garbage trucks and the smell of bagels drifting through her hallway. Liam sat on the fire escape with a blanket around his shoulders, sketching buildings with the seriousness of an architect twice his age. Ava rode the bus with him to school, hugging her coat tightly around herself when the wind cut down Fifth Avenue. From there, she jumped into site meetings, sometimes in tiny Brooklyn backyards, sometimes in gleaming penthouses where the marble floors cost more than everything she owned. But her world, modest and steady, collided violently with luxury the moment she accepted a work contract with a prestigious philanthropic foundation. They were hosting a fundraising gala at the Plaza Hotel and wanted Ava to design a children's art installation, something warm, hopeful, and unlike the cold perfection of Manhattan's elite events. She said yes because she needed the paycheck. She stayed because, for the first time, someone in this city acknowledged her talent. And so, for 3 days before the gala, Ava found herself walking through hallways lined with gold leaf, passing floral arrangements that cost more than a month of rent. Staff in crisp black uniforms whisked past, carrying trays of polished silver. The air smelled faintly of roses and old money. She felt out of place, of course. Her clothes were simple, her nails unpolished, her hair tied back in a messy bun as she checked lighting angles and balloon placements. But the children loved her. They crowded around her, asking for new paint colors, asking if Liam could come tomorrow, asking if she would be there during the gala. She promised she would. On the day of the event, the hotel transformed into a dreamscape. Crystal chandeliers cast soft halos over the ballroom. Velvet drapes framed every doorway. Outside, a line of black Mercedes S-Class sedans arrived one after another, dropping off CEOs, investors, celebrities, and philanthropists. The kind of people Ava once thought lived on another planet. She kept her head down, focusing on the kids, adjusting their aprons, laughing when one accidentally spilled glitter onto her sweater. For a blissful hour, she forgot the stress of rent, forgotten promises, forgotten years. She didn't know Brandon Hale was upstairs, shaking hands with donors and pretending to be the man he desperately wanted the world to believe he was. She didn't know Sloan Carter, in a shimmering silver gown, was scanning the room for threats to her perfect life. Ava only knew the warmth of the children's laughter, the comfort of routine, the peace of believing the past was dead. But as she reached up to tape a paper star to the backdrop, she felt something, an instinctive tightening in her chest, like the air itself had shifted. Liam tugged on her sleeve, pointing toward the balcony above the ballroom. "Mom," he said softly, "someone's staring at us." Ava looked up, and her entire world tilted when she recognized the man standing under the chandelier's glow. Brandon Hale had spent 8 years constructing an image so polished it could blind anyone who looked too closely. In the world of high finance, he was the poster boy for self-made success, the CEO who rose from a cramped apartment in Jersey to penthouse boardrooms on Park Avenue. His suits were custom, his Mercedes spotless, his Rolex gleaming with every calculated handshake. But beneath the expensive fabric and carefully curated charisma lay a man built on fear. Fear of being ordinary, fear of being abandoned, fear of being truly known. And no one understood that fear better than Sloan Carter. She entered his life when he was still a junior analyst, drowning in ambition and insecurity. Her beauty was sharp, her voice honeyed, her instincts lethal. She didn't just help him climb, she engineered his rise with ruthless precision. Sloan was a PR strategist, but in reality, she was a puppeteer. She shaped his public image, whispered strategies into his ear, and cut down anyone who threatened the man she intended to mold, including Ava Sinclair. Sloan had recognized Ava as a threat long before Brandon did. Not because Ava was glamorous, she wasn't. Not because she had connections, she didn't. Ava was dangerous because she saw Brandon without the armor. She knew the scared, uncertain version of him, the version Sloan worked years to bury. Sloan despised that kind of power. Emotional power, authenticity, things she could never control. So when Ava called Brandon the night of the storm, the night Ava's life hung by a thread, Sloan was the one who picked up his phone first. She saw Ava's name. She saw the missed calls. She saw the messages begging for help. And with a calculated flick of her thumb, she deleted them. Then she crafted a story Brandon would believe because he needed to. A story where Ava walked out, where Ava found someone else, where Ava never wanted the baby. Brandon, weak and terrified of responsibility, clung to that lie like a lifeline. Over the next 8 years, Sloan tightened her grip. She built a brand around them. The perfect power couple, photographed at galas, quoted in magazines, seated at the right tables with the right people. She kept track of scandals before they made headlines, made enemies disappear, and scrubbed Brandon's past cleaner than a sterilized operating room. But every empire built on buried truths eventually cracks. Sloan noticed it the moment Brandon froze on the balcony. The way his breath hitched, the way his hand trembled against the railing, the way his eyes locked onto the child below. It wasn't just confusion, it was recognition, deep recognition. A threat, a ghost resurfacing. And Sloan Carter did not tolerate ghosts. She followed Brandon's gaze and saw the boy, dark hair, sharp eyes, a seriousness far beyond his age. Then she saw Ava. That simple black dress, that calm posture, that face Sloan thought she had erased from Brandon's memory forever. A surge of fury shot through her, hidden behind a perfect social smile. Brandon whispered, "Sloan, that boy, he looks like..." "You're imagining things," she cut in sharply, nails digging into his arm. "Don't react. Not here." But Brandon was no longer listening. For the first time in 8 years, his pristine world trembled because one look at that child had undone every lie Sloan ever told him. And Sloan, watching the unraveling begin, realized she might have to destroy Ava Sinclair all over again, this time permanently. Ava Sinclair never intended to attract attention that night. She came to the Plaza Hotel only to guide the children, to make sure the installation lights were working, to help Liam paint a small cardboard skyline. But fate had a brutal sense of timing, and it chose that exact moment under a chandelier worth more than her yearly income to expose the truth she spent 8 years burying. It began when a volunteer asked Ava if she could bring the children toward the stage for the donor presentation. She nodded, wiping glitter from Liam's cheek. The ballroom lights dimmed, music swelled, and the crowd of wealthy guests shifted their gaze toward the podium. Ava walked along the edge, trying to stay invisible, but Liam tugged her hand excitedly, pointing toward the balcony again. The spotlight swept across the room and landed directly on Brandon Hale. A hush rippled through the ballroom. Brandon, young, powerful, impeccably dressed, was the kind of man people whispered about with admiration. Cameras flashed. The MC praised his foundation, his commitment to the city's youth, his inspiring leadership. Each compliment stabbed Ava like a needle. He was being celebrated for helping children when he abandoned his own. Liam, not understanding the weight of the moment, whispered, "Mom, that man keeps looking at me." Ava's heart twisted. She squeezed his hand gently. "Just stay with me, sweetheart." From above, Brandon's world began to spin. His eyes kept darting between Liam and Ava, two faces he never expected to see again. The boy's posture, the way he tilted his head, the way his eyebrows tightened when confused, it was like looking into a mirror of 8-year-old Brandon. Sloan noticed it too. Her nails dug into her champagne glass as jealousy and fear twisted in her stomach. The MC invited Brandon to speak. He stepped forward, gripping the microphone too tightly. His voice trembled, though the audience could not tell whether it was emotion or dread. "It's an honor," he began, but his eyes drifted down again toward Liam, toward Ava, toward the life he abandoned. His voice cracked. "Children deserve every opportunity, every chance to succeed." Ava felt sick. The hypocrisy, the lies, the applause, it suffocated her. She backed away toward the exit, pulling Liam with her. Then it happened. The crowd parted. A photographer stumbled into Liam, knocking the boy forward. He fell hard, scraping his knee. The sharp cry echoed across the marble floor. Ava dropped to her knees instantly. "Baby, are you okay? Let me see." But Brandon got there at the same time. For one horrifying moment, the three of them knelt together under the chandelier, Ava, Liam, and the man whose blood ran through Liam's veins. Brandon reached out instinctively. "Is he hurt?" "Let me." Ava slapped his hand away before she could stop herself. Gasps rippled through the guests. Cameras swung toward them. Brandon froze, stunned. Sloan stepped forward, rage burning in her eyes. A reporter whispered loudly, "Is that the Sinclair designer? Why is she confronting Hale? Who's the kid?" Dozens of eyes turned to them. Ava felt her throat tighten as whispers shot across the ballroom like wildfire. And before she could shield her son, someone in the crowd asked the question out loud, "Why does that kid look exactly like Brandon Hale?" Ava didn't remember how she got out of the ballroom. One moment, she was kneeling on the shining marble floor, under the glow of chandeliers, surrounded by gasps and whispers, and the next, she was pushing through a maze of hallways behind the event space, Liam clinging to her hip, his little arms wrapped around her neck. Her heartbeat throbbed in her ears like sirens. Her breathing came in short, sharp bursts. The humiliation, the fear, the memories, everything thundered through her at once. She found a small service corridor behind the kitchens, cold and dimly lit. There, finally away from the eyes of Manhattan's elite, she leaned against the wall and slid down to the floor. Her hands shook uncontrollably as she checked Liam's knee. It was just a scrape, but her son's tears made her chest ache. "Mom, why were all those people staring?" Liam whispered, his voice trembling. Ava swallowed hard. "They were just surprised, sweetheart. That's all." It was a lie. They weren't surprised, they were suspicious, they were connecting dots Ava had fought years to keep apart. She could feel the questions forming already. Who was she? Who was the boy? Why did Brandon Hale react like that? Why did the child look like him? Ava buried her face in her hands. She couldn't breathe. 8 years. 8 years she fought to stay invisible. 8 years she clawed her way out of poverty, out of shame, out of heartbreak. 8 years she protected Liam from the world and from the man who walked away from them. And in one moment, under one chandelier, everything collapsed. She rocked forward, trying to steady her breath, but the panic rose like a tide. The walls felt too close. Her vision blurred, her throat tightened. Liam reached up and touched her cheek. "Mom, are you sick?" he asked softly. Ava forced a shaky smile. "No, honey, I'm just tired." But she wasn't tired. She was terrified. What if Brandon tried to take Liam away? What if Sloan destroyed her reputation? What if people believed whatever story they spun? In their world of money and influence, she was nothing but a single mother with a modest apartment and overdue bills. They could crush her if they wanted to. She closed her eyes, and the memory struck her like lightning the night of the storm. The blood, the pain, the silence when Brandon ignored her calls. She remembered reaching for her phone, begging him to answer, whispering his name while her world went dark. She remembered waking up in a hospital bed alone, told she almost didn't make it, told her baby almost didn't make it. Her stomach clenched, her hands turned cold. What if history repeated itself? Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Ava stiffened, pulling Liam closer, shielding him with her body. Voices grew louder, staff members, photographers, or worse, him? She wasn't ready. She couldn't face Brandon again. Not yet, maybe not ever. Liam squeezed her hand. "Mom, someone's coming." Ava wiped her tears with the back of her sleeve, forcing herself to stand. Her knees trembled, her heart pounded. She braced herself for another blow. But the man who stepped into the corridor wasn't Brandon. It was Dr. Ethan Ward, still in his suit, still calm, still steady, his eyes soft with concern as they landed on her and her trembling son. "Ava," he said gently, stepping closer. "I saw what happened. I'm here. You're not alone." And the moment she heard his voice, her knees nearly gave out, because she realized this nightmare was only beginning. Ethan Ward had always carried a quiet steadiness, the kind that made people trust him without question. But when he knelt beside Ava in that dim service hallway, his calm expression couldn't hide the storm in his eyes. He examined Liam's scraped knee with practiced hands, murmuring gentle reassurance, but his attention kept flicking back to Ava, her trembling shoulders, the panic lingering in her breath. "Ava," he said softly, "you're having a panic episode." Slow breaths. In, out, follow my rhythm. She did. Slowly, painfully, her chest loosened. Only when Liam relaxed against her side did Ethan speak again, his voice lower now, edged with something heavier. You knew this day might come, he said. Ava closed her eyes. I prayed it wouldn't. Ethan hesitated, then glanced down the hallway to make sure no one was near. There's something you need to know. Something I should have told you years ago. She frowned. Ethan, what are you talking about? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair, an uncharacteristic gesture that instantly unnerved her. The night you gave birth, he said, you weren't supposed to survive. You were hemorrhaging. We almost lost you, and Liam both. But that wasn't the part I kept from you. Ava felt the world tilt. What could be worse than that? Ethan's jaw tightened. Brandon was contacted that night. Her heart stopped. No, he wasn't. He blocked me. And afresh. He blocked you, Ethan corrected gently. But the hospital called him as your listed emergency contact. Standard protocol. Someone answered his phone. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Who? Sloan Carter. Ava's breath vanished completely. Ethan continued, voice trembling with the weight of a secret he'd buried too long. She told the nurse you were a stranger, that you were lying. She said you weren't Brandon's responsibility. She demanded your file be sealed and that no further calls be made. She even threatened the hospital with legal action. Ava stared at him, numb. Why? Why didn't you tell me this before? Because you were barely holding yourself together, he said. You were recovering from surgery. You had no support system. You were terrified and alone. I didn't want to break what little strength you had left. And later, I thought the truth would destroy you. She shook her head, tears spilling. She knew I was pregnant. She knew I needed help. She let me almost die. Ethan's voice hardened. Ava, Sloan Carter didn't just manipulate Brandon. She erased you. She erased Liam. She sabotaged your chance for medical support, financial support, everything. She made sure Brandon never knew you were fighting for your life that night. Ava pressed her hand over her mouth, trying not to sob. The betrayal hit her like a knife, sharp, merciless, deep. Liam leaned into her, confused by her shaking. She wrapped her arms around him, holding him like he might disappear. Ethan placed a steady hand on her shoulder. There's more. I found documentation notes, call logs, proof of what she did. I kept them. I didn't know when you'd need them, but I knew someday you would. The world around Ava blurred. Proof, evidence. 8 years of silence suddenly had a shape, a name, a culprit. Ethan looked into her eyes. Determined. Ava. Sloan didn't just steal your voice that night. She stole Brandon's chance to be a father. She stole your right to live without fear. Ava's tears stopped abruptly, not from sadness, but from something darker, something sharper. Anger. And for the first time in 8 years, Ava Sinclair felt the first spark of a war she was finally ready to fight. Ava Sinclair woke the next morning with swollen eyes, a tight chest, and a mind full of the truths Ethan had revealed. Sleep had refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sloan Carter deleting her messages, erasing her existence, choosing convenience over a dying woman and an unborn child. But as the first gray light filtered through her curtains, something inside Ava shifted. Not calm, not peace, something fiercer. Resolve. She stood in her small apartment, staring at the reflection in her bathroom mirror. The woman looking back wasn't the frightened 22-year-old who begged Brandon to pick up the phone. She wasn't the overworked single mother who fainted from exhaustion in grocery store aisles. She wasn't the timid designer afraid of failing in a city that glorified perfection. She was a survivor. A mother, a woman with truth on her side. And she was done hiding. Ava showered, letting the steaming water lift the weight from her shoulders. Then she opened her closet and pulled out the one thing she kept for someday, a sleek black blazer she bought secondhand from a designer consignment shop on the Upper West Side. She paired it with tailored pants, a silk blouse, and boots that clicked with quiet confidence. Her makeup was simple, her hair pulled back into a smooth, low bun. She looked sharp, capable, unshakable. Liam walked in, still in pajamas, rubbing his eyes. He paused when he saw her. "Mom, you look like one of those important ladies on TV." Ava knelt, kissing his forehead. "Today, sweetheart, I have important things to do." Ethan arrived shortly after, holding a manila folder filled with documentation, hospital call logs, staff statements, written notes about the night Ava nearly died. Evidence. Real evidence. Ava's hands trembled when she held it, but not with fear. With power? They took the subway together, Ava sitting upright, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Ethan explained the plan. She would confront Brandon privately, first not for reconciliation, not for forgiveness, but for clarity. Then, with or without his cooperation, she would proceed legally to secure Liam's safety and expose Sloan's crimes. Ava listened quietly. For the first time in years, she wasn't reacting to life, she was directing it. When they reached Park Avenue, she felt the old anxiety pounding in her chest. The towering glass building where Brandon ruled over boardrooms rose above her like a monument to everything she'd lost. But she inhaled, straightened her blazer, and walked through the revolving doors. Inside, marble floors gleamed under soft lighting. Executives in tailored suits moved briskly through the lobby. Ava approached the reception desk with the posture of someone who belonged there. "I'm here to see Brandon Hale," she said. The receptionist blinked, surprised by the authority in her voice. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Ava replied, "but he'll want to see me." Her calm certainty was so absolute that the receptionist made the call. Minutes later, a tall man in an expensive suit stepped off the elevator, one of Brandon's executive assistants. He looked at Ava, then at Ethan, then at the folder in her hands. "Miss Sinclair," he said slowly, "Mr. Hale will meet you in his private office." "He tunned her." Ava nodded, her pulse steady. She wasn't the girl who cried in a service hallway anymore. She was walking into the lion's den with the truth, and she wasn't afraid. The elevator doors slid open, and as she stepped inside, Ava didn't realize that Brandon wasn't the only one waiting for her on the top floor. Sloan was, too. Brandon Hale's private office sat on the top floor, like a throne room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, a marble desk, a Mont Blanc pen resting neatly beside his MacBook Pro. It was a space designed to intimidate, and for years it had worked. People walked in afraid, they walked out obedient. But today, the air felt different. Today, Brandon wasn't the predator, he was the man cornered by truths he could no longer outrun. When Ava stepped out of the elevator, she expected to see him alone. Instead, Sloan Carter was waiting. She stood near the window in a white suit, tailored as sharply as her ambition. Her arms were crossed, her smile tight, her eyes burning with the quiet fury of someone whose empire was beginning to crumble. "Ava," Sloan said coolly, "what an unexpected surprise." Ava didn't flinch. "I'm not here for you." Brandon rose from behind the desk. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked genuinely shaken. "Ava, I didn't know you were coming." "I didn't, Ava. We need to talk about last night." "No," she said sharply. "We need to talk about 8 years ago." She placed the manila folder on his desk. Brandon stared at it like it was a live grenade. Slowly, he opened it. His eyes scanned the documents, hospital logs, notes from Ethan, timestamps, call attempts, proof. Proof that Ava didn't abandon him. Proof that she didn't run. Proof that she was fighting for her life while he lay in a 5-star hotel suite with the woman standing behind him. Brandon's face crumpled. "Sloan, what is this? Why would you answer my phone? Why would you?" "Brandon," Sloan hissed, stepping forward, "you don't owe this woman anything. She's here to blackmail you. Look at her. Look at that child. She wants money, sympathy, attention." "That child is his son," Ava said, voice steady but trembling underneath. "And the only reason he didn't know is because you," she pointed at Sloan, "played God with our lives." Sloan laughed, brittle and sharp. "Oh, please. You were a cashier in Brooklyn. You would have dragged him down. I was protecting his future." Ava stepped closer. "You weren't protecting his future. You were protecting your position. And is mucher." Brandon backed away from Sloan, as if seeing her for the first time. "You lied to me," he whispered. "You told me she left. You told me she didn't want the baby." "I told you what you needed to hear," Sloan snapped. "You would have thrown your entire career away over a girl who couldn't even pay her hospital bills." Ava's breath caught, but not from pain. From anger. Pure, righteous anger. Ethan, standing by the door, spoke for the first time. "Mr. Hale, as a witness to the events of that night, I am fully prepared to testify." Brandon looked torn. Guilt, shock, horror rippling through him. Then the office door opened. 2 board members of the firm stepped inside, faces grim. "Mr. Hale," one said, "we need to speak with you immediately. A source has leaked information about your connection to a woman and child from 8 years ago. The press is already spinning it as a cover-up. We need transparency. Now." Sloan paled. "A leak? Who leaked it?" But Ava already knew. Earlier that morning, before dressing in that black blazer, she sent an anonymous email with the documents attached, not to destroy Brandon, but to protect herself from whatever lies Sloan would unleash. Brandon ran a hand through his hair, panic rising. Cameras were already downstairs. Reporters, witnesses, investors, everyone demanding answers. Ava looked him straight in the eye. "I'm not afraid of you anymore." Brandon swallowed hard. "Ava, what do you want from me?" She lifted her chin. "Justice." Before he could answer, Sloan lunged at Ava, voice cracking with desperation. "You think you've won? You think this ends with Brandon losing his job? You have no idea what's coming." Ava stepped backward, shielding Liam behind her in her mind because she knew the fight wasn't over. And as security entered the office, summoned by board members, Sloan Carter's expression twisted into something truly dangerous. A promise that she wasn't finished. The fallout came faster than anyone expected. Within 48 hours, headlines swept across every major news outlet. CEO Brandon Hale, accused of covering up child, hospital negligence, PR manipulation. Photos from the Plaza Gala were everywhere, Brandon's frozen expression, Ava shielding Liam, and the moment security escorted Sloan out of his office. Investors fled. Board members held emergency meetings. Brandon was stripped of his title by the end of the week. But for Ava, the storm wasn't about triumph. It was about closure. She spent the next few days helping Liam maintain a sense of normalcy: school, warm meals, bedtime stories, while meeting with her attorney to finalize legal protections. Brandon, shaken and remorseful, requested visitation under supervised conditions. Ava didn't hate him. Hatred required energy she no longer wished to give. She simply protected her son. And somehow, that boundary brought her peace. What surprised Ava most, however, wasn't Brandon's downfall. It was the quiet strength that grew in her. Each morning, she woke up unafraid. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Her design proposal for a Central Park renovation had been approved. It wasn't just a project, it was a life-changing contract. Enough to move into a safer home, enough to secure Liam's future, enough to breathe for the first time in years. When she told Ethan, he smiled in that gentle way of his, like he had known all along she was destined for more. Ava's life began stitching itself together slowly, beautifully, like a broken quilt reforged with gold thread. Brandon met with her in a quiet cafe weeks later. No suits, no polished image. Just a man stripped of delusion. "I want to be better," he said quietly. "Not for me, for him." Ava nodded. "Then be consistent." That's all Liam needs. There was no reunion, no rekindling, only truth. And finally, forgiveness. Not for his sake, but hers. When Ava left the cafe, she felt 10 pounds lighter. Spring arrived in Manhattan, in soft greens and early sun. One evening, while Liam played with a soccer ball in Central Park, Ethan joined Ava on a bench overlooking the field. He handed her a small Amazon box. "Open it," he said, a nervous warmth touching his voice. Inside was a simple silver necklace shaped like a tiny leaf, the symbol she used in her first landscape design. She touched it gently, her eyes stinging. "Ethan, it's beautiful. There's something I want to say," he murmured. "I've watched you fight battles no one else saw. I've watched you raise a remarkable boy. I don't want to replace anything or anyone. I just want to stand beside you, if you'll let me." Ava looked at Liam laughing freely under the golden sky, then back at Ethan. For the first time in 8 years, her heart did not tremble at the future. She smiled softly. "Then stand with us." Ethan reached for her hand. She let him. As Liam ran toward them, breathless and bright-eyed, he asked, "Mom, can Ethan come with us for ice cream? Like, forever?" Ava laughed, a real, unbroken laugh she hadn't heard from herself in so long. "Maybe he can," she said. Liam cheered, grabbing both their hands. And as the three of them walked down the tree-lined path, sunlight spilling across their shadows, Ava finally understood. She didn't win because Brandon fell. She won because she rose. And the life waiting ahead of her, steady, loving, whole, was the ending she had always deserved. For a few precious weeks, life settled into something Ava Sinclair didn't recognize at first. Stability. Liam woke up smiling. Her Central Park contract moved forward smoothly. Ethan's presence became a quiet comfort woven into her days. Morning coffees, calm conversations, gentle laughter that healed parts of her she didn't know were still broken. It felt like standing in sunlight after years of cold. But New York never let peace last long. One morning, while Ava prepared sketches at her dining table, Liam humming softly beside her, there came a knock on the door. Not gentle, not friendly. A heavy, deliberate knock that froze her hand, midline. Ethan wasn't due for another hour. She opened the door just an inch enough to see a tall man in a charcoal coat, holding a thick envelope. "Miss Sinclair?" he asked. "Yes, I'm here to serve you." Her stomach dropped as he handed her the envelope. The seal bore the mark of a prestigious law firm in Manhattan. For a moment she couldn't breathe. She stepped back, the walls closing in. Liam lifted his head. "Mom, what's wrong?" Ava opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Her eyes skimmed the first lines, then widened in disbelief. A petition for emergency custody review, filed by Sloan Carter. Not Brandon, not the man seeking redemption, but the woman who tried to erase her. Ava sank onto the couch, shock stealing her words. Ethan arrived minutes later, immediately noticing her pale face. "What happened?" he asked. She handed him the papers. He read them slowly, anger tightening every muscle in his jaw. "She's arguing Brandon is an unfit father due to the scandal," he said, voice low, "and that you are unstable because of the panic episode at the plaza." His fists clenched. "She's twisting the fallout to make herself the savior." Ava felt nauseous. "Can she do this? Can she really try to take Liam from me?" Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "The claim is weak, but Sloan is dangerous. She's trying to corner Brandon and weaponize the situation against you." The fear Ava thought she had buried surged back to life. She remembered hospital nights alone, the constant threat of losing everything, the powerlessness that once defined her. The thought of Liam taken away clawed at her chest. Ethan knelt in front of her. "Listen to me. We're not letting her win. But there's something else you need to know." Ava blinked. "What now?" He hesitated. "Brandon reached out to me yesterday. He's been gathering evidence of Sloan's financial misconduct. She's been embezzling funds from charitable partnerships using children's programs as a cover. If this comes out, she faces criminal charges." Ava stared at him, stunned. "So she's attacking me because she knows Brandon can expose her." Ethan nodded. "This is desperation. Sloan is losing control." Just then, Ava's phone buzzed. A voicemail notification. She pressed play. Sloan's voice filled the room, smooth, cold, venomous. "Ava, this city is brutal for women like you. You should have stayed invisible. You think a few tears and a doctor at your side make you a mother worth keeping? You have no idea what's coming. I always finish what I start. It's as reportenten. It's a Stroms 4. Ava's grip tightened around the phone. Something hot and electric surged in her chest, not fear this time. Determination. Ethan watched her carefully. "Ava, what are you thinking?" She stood, taller than she felt moments before. "I'm thinking, I'm done letting her dictate my life. If she wants a war, she's getting one." Before Ethan could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Brandon. "Ava, please, we need to talk. It's about Sloan and about Liam. It's urgent." Ava stared at the screen, pulse quickening. Because whatever Brandon Hale had to say next could change everything. Ava agreed to meet Brandon at a quiet rooftop lounge in Midtown, the kind of place where city lights shimmered in the reflection of polished glass railings and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. She didn't come alone. Ethan walked her to the elevator but stayed downstairs, giving her space while remaining close enough should anything go wrong. The elevator doors opened to reveal Brandon already waiting, hands buried in his coat pockets, shoulders tense. Gone was the perfectly composed CEO. In his place stood a man exhausted by consequences he never expected. "Ava," he said, voice strained, "thank you for coming." She stepped onto the rooftop, wind tugging at her hair. "I'm not here for your comfort, Brandon. You said it was urgent. Say what you need to say." He exhaled shakily. Sloan, she's spiraling. And she's more dangerous than you think. A humorless laugh escaped Ava. I already know she tried to erase me, tried to erase Liam, tried to take him again. Brandon winced, guilt crushing him. I didn't know God, Ava. I didn't know she answered that call. I didn't know she threatened the hospital. I didn't know you almost died because of her. It's 8 years too late to say that, she replied sharply. Brandon nodded, accepting the blow. Then he pulled a small flash drive from his pocket, setting it on the table between them. This, he said, is proof Sloan has been siphoning funds from charity accounts. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. She used children's programs as her shield. She thinks no one will audit nonprofits too closely. Ava stared at the flash drive, cold dread spreading through her. How long have you known? A few weeks, he admitted. I only started investigating because, after I saw Liam, I realized my life had been built on lies. I needed to know how deep they went. Her chest tightened. And they went this deep. He nodded. If this gets out, she's finished. But she knows I have the evidence. That's why she filed the custody petition. She's trying to destroy you first, to corner me. If she gets Liam involved legally, she can manipulate public sympathy and bury her crimes. Ava's stomach dropped. So this isn't about the child she pretends to care about. It's about leverage. Yes, Brandon whispered. And she won't hesitate to hurt you again. Ava crossed her arms. Then why come to me? Why not go straight to the authorities? Because, he said quietly, I need someone I trust to hold the backup copy. If she retaliates, if something happens to me, the truth still comes out. Ava stiffened. Brandon, what are you saying? He swallowed. Sloan confronted me this morning. She knows I'm not playing along anymore. She threatened me. She said accidents happen to men who disappoint her. Fear flickered through Ava, but she forced herself to stay standing tall. You think she'd hurt you? I think she'd do anything to save herself, Brandon whispered. And I think you and Liam are next on her list. Wind whipped across the rooftop, cold and sharp. Ava looked at the flash drive, then back at the man who once abandoned her. This time, though, the stakes were no longer emotional, they were survival. Before she could respond, the rooftop door slammed open. Ethan rushed out, breathless. Ava, we need to go, now. She turned, startled. What happened? Ethan held up his phone. His expression was tight with urgency. Ava, Liam's school just called. Her pulse spiked. Is he okay? Ethan's voice dropped to a haunted whisper. They said a woman claiming to be a family member tried to pick him up. Poor. Ava didn't remember running, only the cold rush of terror surging through her as Ethan dragged her toward the stairwell, Brandon close behind them. Her mind spiraled into panic, every nightmare she'd buried, clawing its way to the surface. Someone tried to pick up Liam. Someone pretended to be family. Someone who knew exactly how to strike her deepest fear. Sloan. Her breath hitched. Her legs shook as they sprinted down the concrete stairs, heels clacking in frantic rhythm. Ethan kept repeating, "We'll get there, we'll get there." Brandon murmured apologies under his breath, sounding more broken than dangerous. But none of it mattered. All Ava could think about was Liam, her sweet, artistic, gentle boy standing alone, waiting for a mother who might be seconds too late. They burst out onto the street. Ethan's car was already pulled up, hazards flashing. The moment Ava slid into the passenger seat, Ethan floored the gas, weaving through midtown traffic with a precision honed from years of emergency room speed. Brandon jumped in the back, gripping the headrest. What exactly did the school say? Ava demanded, voice trembling. Ethan checked his mirror. The secretary said a woman arrived during pickup hours, claiming she was authorized. When they asked for ID, she refused and got agitated. She left before security could stop her. End quote. It's another one. Ava felt sick. Did they describe her? A beat of silence. She matched Sloan's height and hair color. Ava's heart slammed against her ribs. For years, she feared losing Liam to poverty, illness, chance. Never had she imagined losing him to someone else's vengeance. Traffic snarled ahead. Ethan swerved onto a side street, clipping a puddle that splashed against the sidewalk. Car horns blared behind them. Ava clenched her fists. If she touches him, if she scares him. She won't, Ethan said, voice steady. The school knows you. They know Liam. They wouldn't release him. Brandon leaned forward, guilt carving lines into his face. "Ava, I'll help. Whatever it takes." She didn't look at him. She couldn't not when the past and the present were colliding again like a nightmare looping on repeat. 5 endless minutes later, they screeched to a stop outside the school. Ava jumped out before the car stopped fully, sprinting through the front doors. The receptionist gasped when she saw her. "Miss Sinclair, Liam is in the counseling office. He's safe, I promise." Ava's knees buckled with relief, but she forced herself forward. She pushed open the counseling room door. Liam sat on a beanbag chair, hugging his backpack, eyes red but unharmed. The moment he saw her, he shot to his feet. "Mom, if you can." Ava dropped to her knees and pulled him into her arms, breathing in the warm, familiar smell of crayons and laundry detergent. She pressed her face into his hair, tears burning down her cheeks. "Are you okay?" she whispered. He nodded into her shoulder. "A lady said she knew you. But she didn't. I told the teacher." Ava's heart cracked and swelled at the same time. "You did exactly the right thing." Ethan exhaled behind her, shoulders loosening. Even Brandon sagged with relief. The school administrator entered the room. "Miss Sinclair, we've increased security for the rest of the week. We've also notified the precinct. Detective Morales is waiting if you'd like to file a report." Ava hesitated. Filing a report meant escalation. It meant going to war officially. It meant dragging Liam into a legal mess. But then she remembered Sloan's voicemail. "I always finish what I start." A chill crawled up her spine. Ava stood, gripping Liam's hand. Her voice was no longer shaky, it was steel. "Yes," she said. "I'm filing a report." As they walked toward the front of the school, Ava's phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. She opened it. "You got lucky today. Next time, luck won't help you." Ava froze in place. Because attached to the message was a photo of Liam taken secretly that morning. Ava stared at the photo on her phone. Liam, walking into school that morning, head down, backpack crooked, completely unaware someone had been watching him. Her stomach twisted, her throat closing as a tremor passed through her fingers. Not from fear this time. From rage. Pure, focused rage. Ethan stepped closer. "Ava, what is it?" She handed him the phone. His face darkened instantly. "This is stalking. This is criminal." Brandon, standing behind them, clenched his jaw. "Sloan is losing control. She won't stop unless someone forces her to." Ava inhaled slowly, deeply, something steadying inside her. "Then we force her." For 8 years, Ava survived by staying quiet. Now, silence was no longer protection. It was danger. She squeezed Liam's hand gently and nodded to the school counselor. "Please stay with him. I'll be right outside." In the hallway, her voice sharpened with purpose. "We file the report today. We hand over the voicemail, the photo, everything. And then..." She turned to Brandon. "You give the detectives the flash drive." Brandon swallowed. "That will destroy her." Ava held his gaze, unflinching. "She tried to destroy me. She threatened my son. There are no more lines to cross. She crossed them all." He nodded, understanding at last the woman he once abandoned was no longer the girl he remembered. At the precinct, Detective Morales listened intently as Ava recounted the series of events: Sloan's hospital interference 8 years ago, the voicemail threat, the attempted pickup, the stalking photo. When she handed over her phone, Morales's brows drew together. "This isn't just intimidation," he said. "This is a pattern. She's escalating." Brandon slid the flash drive across the desk. Morales glanced at it, then at him. "This better be what I think it is." "It is," Brandon said hoarsely. "Proof she's been embezzling charity funds." Morales leaned back, exhaling. "All right, we'll open a dual investigation. But Miss Sinclair..." His eyes softened. "Be prepared. When someone like Sloan falls, she tends to take swings on the way down." Ava nodded. "Let her swing. I'm done hiding." Outside the precinct, the cold Manhattan air burned against her cheeks. Ethan wrapped a supportive arm around her shoulders. "You handled that with more strength than most people would have." "If you wonder." Ava shook her head. "I didn't have a choice." Brandon stepped forward cautiously. "Ava, I know I failed you. I know I failed Liam, but let me help now. Sloan knows you have the police involved. She will retaliate. Let me protect." "You don't get to use that word," Ava cut in sharply. "Protect. You forfeited that right 8 years ago." Brandon absorbed the blow, nodding slowly. Then let me repair the damage. However I can. Ava didn't answer. She didn't trust him, but she no longer feared him either. That night, she stayed awake, reviewing every document, every message, every memory that could help strengthen the case. She crafted timelines, collected witness names, saved evidence to multiple encrypted drives. She was no longer reacting to Sloan. She was preparing to destroy her. Around midnight, her phone buzzed again. A video, this time. Hands shaking, Ava pressed play. The screen filled with blurry footage. Someone filming through a windshield, following a familiar Toyota. Following her. Earlier that afternoon, a low, distorted voice played through the speaker. I warned you. Back down. Ava's pulse spiked, but instead of panic, something cold and controlled settled over her. Sloan wasn't hiding anymore. And neither would Ava. She grabbed her coat, her jaw set. Tomorrow, Ava Sinclair would make the first strike publicly. And Sloan Carter would never see it coming. By dawn, Manhattan was already humming with the sound of taxis, delivery trucks, and early commuters. But inside Ava Sinclair's apartment, the air was unnervingly still. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee, her laptop open, documents spread across the surface like a battlefield map. The threats, the stalking photo, the hospital records, the financial data, every wound Sloan Carter ever inflicted was now a weapon in Ava's hands. She wasn't going to wait for the system to move slowly. Not when Liam's safety was on the line. Ethan entered quietly, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. Are you sure you want to do this today? He asked gently. Ava didn't hesitate. I'm done responding to her. It's time she responds to me. Her plan was simple. Brutal, public. Sloan Carter had spent years building an image as Manhattan's philanthropic sweetheart, charity galas, children's programs, community initiatives. But that image was hollow, and Ava now possessed the proof. She would expose Sloan where it hurt most. In the court of public opinion. With steady fingers, Ava crafted a press release, professional, factual, devastating. It included a timeline of Sloan's interference the night Ava nearly died, her attempt to abduct Liam from school, the threatening voicemail, the stalking photo, the embezzlement evidence Brandon provided. Ethan skimmed the draft. Ava, this will go viral within minutes. That's the point, she said. I won't let her control the narrative anymore. She hit send. Within minutes, journalists began responding. Some asked for statements, some asked for interviews. Some didn't ask at all, they simply published. The headlines spread like wildfire. PR director Sloan Carter, accused of embezzlement, child endangerment, and hospital sabotage. Ava watched the story erupt across Twitter and major news sites, each post gaining thousands of shares. Screenshots of Sloan at gala events appeared beside damning summaries of her crimes. Reporters dug into her past campaigns. Former colleagues came forward. The narrative Ava had suppressed for 8 years finally roared into the world. Ethan placed a gentle hand on her back. You just changed the game. But Ava wasn't finished. She had one more move. She posted a statement to her own social media, something she'd never used publicly. It was simple, honest, and piercing. For 8 years, I chose silence to protect my son. Yesterday, silence nearly cost me everything. This is our truth. This is our fight. If Ava Sinclair. Within minutes, thousands of comments poured in. Supportive mothers, women who had survived manipulation, designers who admired her work, people who recognized her story and rallied behind her. And then another message appeared. From Brandon, a single line. Ava, I'm going to the board today. Sloan will be permanently removed. You have my full testimony. She exhaled slowly. Not relief, not victory, but momentum. By noon, reporters camped outside Sloan's luxury condo. Cameras flashed, microphones swarmed. Sloan stepped outside in sunglasses, her perfect mask cracking under the weight of the allegations. A journalist shouted, Miss Carter, do you deny attempting to abduct a child? Another, are you aware your husband provided evidence against you? And the sharpest blow, is it true you tampered with a hospital case that almost killed a mother and her newborn? Sloan's veneer shattered. Her voice shook, her hands trembled. The queen of PR could no longer spin. Back in her apartment, Ava watched in silence. Liam napped on the couch, unaware of the war his mother was fighting. Ethan spoke softly. Ava, you just turned the tide. But Ava didn't smile. She knew Sloan Carter wasn't finished. A cornered enemy was the most dangerous kind. Her phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. A video clip. Ava pressed play and froze. In the footage, Brandon Hale stood in his office, arguing with someone off-screen, before suddenly stepping backward as if shoved. The recording ended abruptly, and Ava felt dread coil in her chest because Sloan wasn't going down quietly. The video clip played again and again in Ava's mind. Brandon stumbling backward in his office, his face tense, his hands raised as if trying to calm someone standing just out of frame. The footage ended abruptly, leaving only a blank screen and a rising dread in Ava's chest. Whoever recorded it wanted her afraid, wanted her rattled. And it was working. Ethan rested a steady hand on her shoulder. Ava, breathe. We don't know when this was taken. But she shook her head. It doesn't matter. She's losing control. And people like Sloan don't break quietly, they explode. Across town, chaos was already unfolding. News helicopters hovered above Park Avenue. Reporters swarmed the entrance of Brandon's firm. Rumors rippled through social media. Sloan Carter seen entering the building, argument overheard, security called. Ava couldn't sit still. Her pulse hammered as she paced the apartment. She went after Liam. Now she's going after Brandon. She's cornered. Which means she's dangerous, Ethan said. We have to be smart. Ava stopped abruptly. I need to know if he's okay. Not because I owe him anything, because anything that weakens him strengthens her. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. I'll drive. They found parking a block from the firm, but security had already set up barricades. Employees huddled outside, whispering. Some held their phones up to record the scene. Ava recognized Brandon's executive assistant, a quiet, capable man named Reed, standing pale and shaken near the entrance. She approached him quickly. Reed, what happened inside? He swallowed hard. Miss Sinclair. She Sloan showed up, demanding to see Brandon. Security tried to stop her, but she pushed past them. They started arguing in his office. Then we heard crashing, yelling, something breaking. Ava felt her stomach twist. Reed continued, voice shaking. She locked the office door from the inside. No one could get in. Ethan stepped forward. Is he still in there? Reed nodded. Security's trying to override the lock now. The police are on the way. Ava pressed a hand to her mouth. The image of Liam flashed in her mind. The hospital bed, the storm, the silence, the deleted messages. And now this violence, manipulation, obsession. Sloan Carter was a woman trained to destroy reputations, but desperation had stripped away her subtlety. Now she was a cornered predator. A loud crack echoed from above, a sound like glass shattering. People gasped. Someone screamed. Ava's heart leapt into her throat. That came from the top floor. Security radioed frantically. Office 12, a window is broken. Repeat, we have a breach. Ava ran toward the building instinctively, but Ethan grabbed her wrist. Ava, no, you can't go in there. She spun around, eyes bright with fear. If she pushes him to confess something untrue, if she twists the narrative, everything I've done to protect Liam could fall apart. Ethan held her shoulders. Ava, listen to me. You are not responsible for whatever happens between them. You've done everything right. This is her doing, not yours. But Ava's heart was a storm. Brandon may have failed her once, but his fall couldn't become a weapon against her son. Police cars screeched to a stop outside the building. Officers rushed inside. People pressed against barricades, phones raised, capturing every moment as if watching a theater performance rather than a man's unraveling life. Minutes dragged like hours. Finally, security managed to unlock Brandon's office. A tense silence spread. Then a shout, "Get paramedics up here, now!" Ava's breath left her body. Ethan tightened his grip on her hand. Reed, trembling violently, whispered, "Oh God, they found him." Ava's voice cracked. Alive? Reed nodded, but his face was drained of color. Alive, but barely. He's hurt. And Sloan, she's gone. She escaped through the stairwell. Ava's pulse pounded. Sloan had tried to destroy her reputation, tried to take her child, tried to silence the truth. And now she had crossed into violence. But the real blow came when Reed added shakily. Before they pulled Brandon out, he kept saying one thing. Tell Ava she's next. The words echoed through Ava's skull long after Reed said them. Tell Ava she's next. For a moment, everything around her blurred: the flashing police lights, the anxious crowd, the hum of helicopters circling overhead. It all dissolved into a cold, singular truth. Sloan wasn't fleeing. She was hunting. Ethan tightened his grip on Ava's arm. "We need to leave. Now." "What if she's already going after Liam?" Ava whispered, panic sharpening her voice. Ethan didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone and dialed the school. "This is Dr. Ward. You need to lock down Liam Sinclair immediately. No one, not even family, picks him up without Ava present." Dull of next. The administrator confirmed Liam was indoors, safe for the moment. But Ava didn't relax. Sloan had proven she could slip past security, manipulate systems, and strike without warning. The threat wasn't theoretical anymore, it was closing in. They sprinted back to the car, weaving through a crowd desperate for scandal. As Ethan pulled into traffic, Ava pressed her forehead against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "I can't let her near him," she murmured. "You won't," Ethan replied, his eyes hard. "She's unraveling. Desperate people make mistakes, we'll use that." But Ava knew desperation also made people dangerous. Halfway to the school, her phone buzzed. A new message. She braced herself before opening it. It wasn't a threat. It was a location. A dropped pin. A warehouse address on the outskirts of Brooklyn. And a message beneath it: "Come alone, Ava, or the next photo won't be harmless." Ethan glanced over as she paled. "What is it? What did she send?" Ava handed him the phone. His jaw clenched. No way. This is a trap." "I know," Ava said quietly. "But if she has anything at all that puts Liam in danger, I have to check." Ethan shook his head violently. "Absolutely not. You're not walking into her hands." "She won't stop," Ava whispered. "She won't stop until one of us breaks." Sirens wailed behind them as police cars sped toward Brandon's building. The world was shifting rapidly, lines between personal and criminal blurring into chaos. Ethan slowed the car. "We're picking up Liam. Then we go straight to the police." Ava nodded because it was the right answer, the logical answer, the safe answer. But when they arrived at the school and Ava saw Liam run into her arms, small and scared and clutching her coat, something inside her hardened. She would burn the city down before she let Sloan touch her son. At the precinct, Detective Morales listened grimly as Ava showed him the newest message. "She wants to isolate you," he said. "She wants you scared. She wants control back." "Can you track the sender?" Ethan asked. "Already on it," Morales replied. "But if I had to guess, she's using a burner phone." "Still, we're sending officers to sweep the warehouse." Ava exhaled shakily. "Good," Morales nodded. "But Ava, until we have Sloan in custody, you and Liam need protective detail." "You?" Two officers escorted them outside toward an unmarked vehicle. Liam held tightly onto Ethan's hand, his small fingers shaking. Ava kissed the top of his head. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're safe now. We're with the police." But just as the officers opened the car door, Morales' radio crackled with static, followed by a voice shouting urgently, "Units to Brooklyn warehouse, suspect vehicle spotted." "Repeat, suspect vehicle on site. Possible hostages." Ava froze. "Hostages?" Her breath quickened. Liam looked up, confused. "Mom?" But the worst came seconds later when Morales' radio erupted again. "Be advised, Brandon Hale's car is here." Ava's blood ran cold. Because Sloan hadn't fled, she had taken Brandon and was waiting for Ava to come finish the game. The drive to the Brooklyn warehouse felt like a descent into another world. Police sirens echoed in the distance, bouncing off the rusting metal structures that lined the waterfront. The wind carried the scent of oil, salt, and something colder: fear. Ava sat in the back of the unmarked police vehicle. Liam held tightly in Ethan's arms beside her. She kept telling herself he was safe, but her pulse refused to slow. Detective Morales spoke from the front seat. "We approach carefully. Sloan is unpredictable, but she's not stupid. She knows we're coming." Ava stared ahead, eyes burning with determination. "She wants me there. She wants an audience." "It's not," was stalled. "Then we control the narrative," Morales replied. When they arrived, the warehouse loomed like a giant carcass, windows shattered, doors hanging crooked, graffiti covering old bricks. Police lights lit the perimeter in flashes of red and blue. Officers took positions behind vehicles, weapons ready. Morales turned to Ava. "Stay with the officers. Under no circumstance do you enter that building. She nodded. She meant to obey. Truly, she did. But then the side door creaked open, and Sloan Carter stepped into the light. Her white suit was smeared with dust. Her hair was wild, half fallen from its polished style. But her eyes, cold, furious, unhinged, were exactly the same. She dragged someone with her. Brandon. His face was bruised, his lips split, his hands tied with a cord she must have torn from something inside. He stumbled as she forced him forward. Police aimed their weapons instantly. Sloan laughed a sharp, broken sound. Lower them, unless you want a corpse. Morales signaled for a temporary stand-down. Ava stepped forward before she could stop herself. Sloan, let him go. This ends now. Sloan released a humorless smile. Oh, Ava. Sweet, inconvenient Ava. You ruined everything. My career, my marriage, my reputation. And for what? A child you had the audacity to keep alive? Ethan stepped in front of Ava. Sloan, move away from him and put your hands up. But Sloan wasn't listening. Her eyes locked on Ava with pure, venomous rage. You think you won because you have the truth? Sloan spat. Truth is useless without power. And you have none. Ava stepped around Ethan, voice steady. I have something you don't. Oh? Enlighten me, Sloan growled. People who will stand with me, Ava said. People who saw what you did. People who finally know who you really are. Sloan's face twisted. You think this is about my reputation? No, Ava. This is about control. Brandon was supposed to be mine. His future was supposed to be mine. And you, she pointed violently, you were supposed to disappear. Brandon, bleeding but conscious, rasped, Sloan, please, stop, it's over. She shoved him to the ground, lifting a shard of broken glass she'd hidden in her sleeve. Officers tensed instantly. Ava's heart lurched. Sloan, don't. Sloan's voice cracked into madness. If I go down, I'm taking every last piece of this story with me, starting with the man who betrayed me. The moment her arm swung toward Brandon, Ava lunged forward without thinking. Ava, no, Ethan shouted behind her. Police moved in, shouting commands. The world blurred, glass glinting, a scream ripping through the night, bodies colliding beneath the flickering warehouse lights. A shot rang out. Everyone froze. Sloan staggered backward, the glass shard slipping from her hand. Ava stared in horror, not at Sloan, but at the figure who had stepped between her and danger in the final second. Brandon Hale collapsed to his knees. He had taken the blow meant for her. And as he fell forward, the truth hit Ava like a second shot. This was far from over. For a few seconds after Brandon collapsed, no one moved. The entire world seemed to hold its breath under the flickering warehouse lights. Then chaos erupted, officers rushing forward, paramedics sprinting from the perimeter, Sloan screaming incoherently as two police officers forced her to the ground. Her white suit streaked with dirt, her mascara smeared down her cheeks. She looked less like the powerful PR queen of Manhattan and more like a woman crumbling under the weight of her own destruction. Ava dropped to her knees beside Brandon. Stay with me, she whispered, pressing her trembling hands against the wound in his side. Don't you dare leave, not like this. Brandon's breaths were shallow, his eyes fluttered open, pain etched across his face. Ava, I had to. She would have hurt you. Tears blurred Ava's vision. You didn't have to take anything from me. He gave a weak, broken chuckle. Maybe not, but I owed you something for everything I didn't do. Paramedics lifted him onto a stretcher. Before they wheeled him away, Brandon reached toward her one last time. Protect Liam, he whispered. Don't let her touch him again. I won't, Ava vowed. As he disappeared into the ambulance, Morales approached her. Sloan Carter is under arrest for assault, attempted kidnapping, embezzlement, and multiple counts of endangerment. She won't see daylight anytime soon. Ava let out a breath she had held for months, maybe years. Is it finally over? Morales nodded slowly. For her, yes. For you, there's still the custody hearing and the official court ruling. But after today, the judge will see everything clearly. Back at the precinct, Ava gave a final statement. Ethan stayed by her side, an anchor in the storm. Liam slept in a chair nearby, his head on Ethan's lap, safe at last. The boy didn't understand the size of the danger he had escaped, only that his mother was near and the world was warm again. The custody hearing was scheduled for the next morning. Ava didn't sleep that night. She sat beside Liam, brushing his hair softly, memorizing the peaceful rise and fall of his breathing. Every fear she had endured, every battle she fought, she had done it for him. And now, the end was finally within reach. Court was held in a small, wood-paneled room. Ethan sat behind Ava, a quiet strength in his posture. Brandon, patched up but pale, testified via video call from his hospital bed. His confession was simple, raw, and honest. I failed Ava. I failed my son. But she protected him. She saved him. She is the only parent who has never abandoned him. Even the judge seemed moved. Sloan, in handcuffs, glared with venom from the defendant's bench. But her presence no longer frightened Ava. The woman who once loomed like a shadow now looked small, shrunken by her own choices. When the judge finally spoke, the room fell silent. Ava Sinclair is granted full legal and physical custody of Liam Sinclair. All previous petitions are dismissed. Brandon Hale may petition for supervised visitation upon completion of counseling and recovery. Sloan Carter is barred from any contact with the minor indefinitely. Ava's breath caught. Ethan reached forward, squeezing her hand. She closed her eyes as relief washed over her warm, overwhelming, cleansing. She had won. Not by force. Not by manipulation. But by truth. As they left the courthouse, Liam ran ahead, laughing in the sunlight. Ava watched him, her heart swelling. Ethan stepped beside her, voice soft. "It's over, Ava." She nodded, tears glimmering. "Yes. Finally." But just as she turned toward him, his expression changed, softening with something deeper, something she wasn't sure she was ready for. Because even as justice settled, something new was beginning between them. Spring settled beautifully over New York, the kind of soft warmth that made even the busiest Manhattan streets feel gentler. For the first time in 8 years, Ava Sinclair walked through the world without fear shadowing her steps. The custody ruling had granted her a freedom she never dared to imagine, freedom from uncertainty, from sleepless nights, from the constant fear of losing the one person she loved most. And with Sloan behind bars, the air felt clearer, safer, whole. Ava spent the following weeks focused on rebuilding life the way she wanted it. Her Central Park renovation project gained attention citywide, and suddenly she wasn't just the quiet freelancer. She was Ava Sinclair, landscape designer whose work brought warmth and humanity into public spaces. Emails poured in. Interview requests. Clients offering more than she ever dared to charge. But none of it compared to the simple joy of watching Liam play freely in the park, no longer glancing over his shoulder. One evening, after Liam spent the afternoon chasing pigeons around the fountain, Ava and Ethan walked home together through the tree-lined path. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in orange and rose tones. Ava felt the weight of exhaustion, but it was a gentle exhaustion earned, not inflicted. "You look lighter," Ethan said, his voice warm. Ava smiled. "I feel lighter. Not just because of the case," he added, "because you finally believe you deserve peace." Ava didn't answer at first. Instead, she looked ahead where Liam ran, arms open like he was trying to hug the whole world. "I fought so long just to survive," she said softly. "It feels strange to imagine anything beyond that." Ethan stepped closer. "Then, imagine with me." She turned, surprised by the seriousness in his voice. "I meant what I said the first time," he continued. "I don't want to replace anyone. I don't want to take over your life. I just want to be part of whatever future you're willing to build. With you. And with Liam." Ava froze, not out of fear, but out of the unfamiliar sensation of being wanted in the purest, gentlest way. "Ethan," she whispered, voice trembling slightly. He reached for her hand, not demanding, not urgent, simply offering. "We've already been walking beside each other for years. Maybe it's time we stop pretending it's temporary." Ava looked down at their joined hands. His grip was warm, grounding, safe. "I think," she said slowly, "I think I'm ready for someone to stand with me. Not in front of me, not behind me, beside me." Ethan's smile was soft and full of quiet joy. "Then we'll move at your pace." But fate didn't plan on moving slowly. Ahead of them, Liam turned around, spotting the two walking hand in hand. His face brightened with pure delight. "Mom," he shouted, "are we a family now?" Ava burst into laughter, covering her face with her free hand. Ethan chuckled too, rubbing the back of his neck. Ava knelt as Liam ran into her arms. "We're something even better," she said, kissing his forehead. "We're building a family, brick by brick." Liam's eyes sparkled. "Can Ethan stay for dinner? And tomorrow? And forever?" Ava looked up at Ethan, who met her gaze with a hopeful softness she had never thought someone would offer her again. "Yes," she whispered, "he can. And Tristan." 24. Weeks later, on a quiet summer morning, Ava stood beside Ethan at a small garden she had designed herself, a symbol of new beginnings. Liam placed a tiny wooden sign in the soil with his handwriting carved crookedly. "Our home." Ava's heart swelled. Everything she had fought for had led her here. Not revenge, not victory over Sloan, but a life rebuilt with love, truth, and safety. And as Ethan slipped his arm around her waist, as Liam danced barefoot through the grass, Ava finally allowed herself to believe what she once thought impossible. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was loved. She was safe. She was home. So, that's it, my wonderful friends. Our story has finally come to a close, and if you're still here with me at this very moment, it means something in Ava's journey touched your heart in a way you maybe didn't expect. Maybe it reminded you of your own battles, the things you survived quietly, the nights you held on when no one knew you were hurting. Ava's story isn't just drama, it's a reminder of what Marcus Aurelius once wrote. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Real strength lies within. And truly, isn't that what healing is? Not erasing the past, but rising above it. Not waiting for someone to save you, but choosing every day to save yourself. We all carry scars. Some visible, some hidden. But as Ava showed us, scars are not signs of weakness. They're proof that you fought and you're still here. If this story touched you, even a little, I'd love for you to like this video, share it with someone who might need hope today, and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey we take together. Thank you for being here. Really. Thank you. Cliquez pour passer au texte original. Cliquez pour traduire la page. Parametres, traduction PDF. Dict logo.